guys, good morning. My name is Debbie. Welcome to my channel. We are on day 16 of the Karen Reed retrial. Good morning. Thank you so much for coming. Let's see what Judy has for us today. Who said it and what did they say? Some are speculating Judge Bev. Some believe it was prosecuting attorney McLaughlin or the court reporter. What does everyone think? Okay, Jill clipped my stream yesterday where it supposedly happened. I'm going to try. I should have done this earlier. I'm going to try to send it to myself and play it because they have not started yet. And dang it, you guys. I made myself a peanut butter sandwich because I'm starving. They were sound asleep, but they're super sniffers. Smell the peanut butter. What are you going to do, pets? You guys go back to sleep. Go back to bed. I didn't invite you to breakfast. Judy went on to say, I haven't seen anything regarding the buffer zone. But the court. Now, Peter Trago said if she actually said this, if she actually called an attorney an a-hole, then ask for her again because prejudice is an attorney. StreamYard, come on. Please don't do this. I didn't say it, Nancy. Robbie, why would you have to go back to bed? Okay, please load. I might be asking for it. It's gone. We ate it all, guys. Oh, she was talking about the puppies not wanting to go back to bed. Oh, okay. I don't understand how they smell such. I mean, I opened the jar of peanut butter and like they appear out of nowhere. 200 times? I knew they smelled like, more acutely than we did, but I didn't know it was 200 times. Wow. It's gone. We ate it all, guys. What are you waiting for? It's all gone. Gone. 'StreamYard, quit being a hater. Nope, it's not that.
Did Michael Proctor reveal to you that he and Kevin Albert had socialized together by drinking alcohol in his food? I need to be very excited.
I didn't hear anything.
Uh, did socialize together by drinking alcohol in his food? I need to be very excited. Uh, did Michael Proctor reveal to you that he and Kevin Albert had socialized together by drinking alcohol in his food? I need to be very excited. Uh, did Michael Proctor reveal to
Did you guys hear anything? I thought I heard whole, but that's it. I I put my earbuds in and still only I thought I heard whole, but there's like papers or something also that's rattling at that time. So, I don't know. But Peter Trago said they could ask for a recusal again, and in this case, if she refuses, then it can go up to a higher judge because this is clearly bias against the defense. And so this time it can go up to a higher judge. But will they do it? I don't know. Yay, Jill! So, but thanks, Jill, for clipping that. But yeah, I think I hear whole, but I'm not sure.
It's now open.
It is.
Why do they do this every day? Oh, nice. Close up on Karen's dad blowing his nose. Oh, Carla, is that what you were talking about? A smoke detector over here? Oh, my head's in the way. Okay, StreamYard's being a butt and won't let me move my head. But that white thing with the red strip right there? It was a whisper. And I mean, I imagine if we all caught it, they were there in person and closer. So if we caught it through the mic with paper shuffling and all that, and a lot of people caught it.
You are unmuted.
So
Hey. All persons have any business before the Honorable Beverly Canoni, Justice of the Norfolk Superior Court, and for the County of Norfolk. Draw near, give your attendance, and you shall be heard. God save the Commonwealth of Massachusetts. This court is now open. May be seated.
Good morning. Ms. Reed.
Good morning. Issues without some this morning around watch us order itself. I do have to those questions. Were you able to follow the instructions and refrain from discussing this case with anyone since we left yesterday? Everyone said yes or nodded affirmatively. Were you also able to follow the instructions and refrain from doing any independent research or investigation into this case? Everyone said yes or nodded affirmatively. Did anyone happen to see, hear, or read anything about this case since we left yesterday? Everyone said no or shook their heads. Thank you. May we have Ms. Hartnett, please?
I'll remind you, you're still in the room.
Yes, thank you.
Good morning.
Good morning.
I'll remind you, you're still in the room, is what closed caption said.
Go right ahead, Mr. Leslie.
Thank you, Your Honor. Good morning, Ms. Hartnett, and welcome back this morning.
Good morning.
Your Honor, if I could please have Exhibit 145 that is in evidence
Okay.
published.
Yes.
Mr. Wolk? Ms. Hartnett, you will recall discussion about the taillight from the Lexus that was discussed on both direct and cross-examination yesterday.
Yes.
And you recall the discussion with regard to the weather that was in existence on or about 29th. I'm not going to go into it at all. I just want to sort of refresh and reorient to where we were on that topic. You recall that?
Yes.
And I am now going to reference specifically what you referred to yesterday, I believe, as the inner part of the taillight, sometimes the inside of the taillight. Do I have that parlance correctly?
Yes, that's correct.
Thank you. So my question is, did you find any sand or salt or any other debris in the inside portion of that taillight?
No, I did not.
Now, and you can take that down. Thank you, Mr. Wolf. You recall discussion about shards of taillight? Do you recall that discussion at all in your testimony?
No, I do not.
Okay. I wasn't certain whether we had that parlance. So my question is, to your knowledge, was there any testing of any taillight alleged to have been found at 34 Fairview for biological material?
No, there was not.
And could you just please state what your definition is, inclusion, when you refer to biological material?
Those items were not processed in the criminalistics unit for any type of biological, meaning they would not tested for blood, semen, saliva, or a skin cell collection.
I'm sorry, I missed the last part that you.
Or a cell collection.
Now, there was a T-shirt and a hoodie of the decedent. Do you recall that?
Yes, I do.
And are you okay with my parlance of T-shirt, the yellow or orange T-shirt on the one hand, and then the gray hoodie sweatshirt? Is that an acceptable parlance for you?
Yes.
So with regard to those two items, if I could, Your Honor, have published what is already in evidence, Exhibit 151 and 150, and Mr. Wolk, if we could please put those side by side. Alrighty, so is it correct that what's on the left is the right sleeve of what we refer to as the hoodie, and on the right is what color would you like to call that T-shirt?
Orange, please.
All right, so the orange T-shirt. Is that what we're looking at up on the screen?
Yes, so it's the right sleeve of the gray hoodie and the back of the orange T-shirt.
Thank you. Am I correct that you included a handwritten note on your report that you found, quote, debris from each of these two items, or from these two items collectively?
I don't handwrite notes on my report, so I'm just confused about where you're asking that.
Okay, I'll ask a different question. Hopefully it will be clear. Did you find debris on any on either of those two items of clothing?
Yes, I performed a debris collection on each of those items and combined them.
I'm sorry, it's not your fault, it's mine. There's a HVAC noise I can't hear. If you
So
could
can we
speak up
turn
just
the
a
air
little.
conditioning off, please?
I'm okay
I
with
can
it.
speak
It's
up.
just if
I'm
you could
sorry.
speak up a little. I don't want to
Of course.
discomfort people. Can you move the mic?
Yes, I can speak up. My
If you could
apologies.
speak a little louder, that'd be great. Thank you.
Yes.
Can you repeat your answer, please?
Can you repeat the question? I apologize.
Sure. Did you find debris on these articles of clothing?
Yes, I took scrapings from each of these items of clothing and combined the debris. Yes.
With regard to scrapings, can you describe how the term scrapings relates to these two items of these two items that are on the screen?
Yes. Scraping is the mechanism I use to remove any debris that was remaining on both the sweatshirt and the t-shirt. I held each up over my lab bench. I took a long metal spatula and scraped any debris that was on these items into a small glassine packet.
Is it correct that you do not know where the debris came from specifically, other than it came from one or both items of both of these two items?
Yes, that's correct.
So the debris could be from just the hoodie, it could be just from the t-shirt, or it could be a combination of the both?
Yes, the items were packaged together, so they were already commingled. So there was no way for me to determine which debris came from which item, and it would be misleading to label them as such, so I combined them.
Exactly where my next point was going to go to. Thank you. And my next questions. So what, if anything, were these two items contained in when you got them?
They were contained in a brown paper bag, and they may have been contained in a larger box, but I don't remember off the top of my head.
So when you got them and you saw them for the first time, using your term, they were commingled together, correct?
Yes, that's correct.
And was there any debris in the bottom of the bag?
There may have been. When I examine something on my bench, I also shake out the bag to ensure that nothing is left behind and that everything is examined and accounted for.
Now, am I also correct that there is no description of the actual debris that you found? For example, you didn't specify whether it was little fibers, little hair, little pieces of this or that. Do I have that correct?
Correct. I did not do any examination on it. I just packaged it.
And therefore, you didn't note whether any of the debris was a plastic or a plasticine nature, correct?
Correct. That would not be part of my analysis.
And there was no marker put on any part of the debris that was recovered. Is that also correct?
I label the debris with an item number. I'm not sure what you mean by marker, if that's what you mean.
Parts of debris, in other words, there wasn't separate identification or markers for separate pieces of debris.
No, I did not separate out the debris.
There was no photograph taken of the debris?
Not by me, no.
Do you have knowledge of whether there was a photograph taken of the debris by anybody?
I do not.
So you have, as you sit here today, you have no knowledge that there's a photograph of the debris.
That's correct. I do not. When
you received the hoodie and the t-shirt that's depicted as 150 and 151, they came in together, commingled with some debris at the bottom in an evidence bag. Is that correct?
I'm not sure if there was shake out the bag. I don't have a memory of anything coming out of the bag. I don't know.
So there could have been debris at the bottom of the bag when you shook it out. You just don't recall.
Yes, correct.
If we could, Your Honor, please have Exhibit 154 already in evidence published. And let's keep it there for a moment. And then I'm going to ask Mr. Wolk for you to zoom in. Ms. Hart, you recognize this, and I'm going to have you. Now, Mr. Wolk, could you please zoom in, starting from the top, so that Ms. Hart, just take a moment to read it, and then I'm going to ask you some questions, but I want you to have a fair opportunity to read it. Let me know when you're done.
Okay.
And if we can then scroll down, Mr. Wolk, so that Ms. Hartnett can fairly read the rest of what's on there. Thank you. Now, Mr. Wolk, if you could just leave it where it is now. With Your Honor's permission, I don't see a need to keep the lights off, can have that on,
Okay,
but if
that's
Ms.
great.
Hartnett
Lights
needs
on,
it,
please.
you'll just let us know. So is this the evidence bag that you received those items?
To the best of my recollection, yes.
You see the name of collected by someone there. Can you read who that states it was collected by?
Yes.
And state what that is.
It says TPR Proctor.
And are you able to conclude what the TPR stands for?
Generally, we use that to abbreviate trooper.
Right. So that is former Trooper Proctor that it says collected by, correct?
That is what's written on the bag, yes.
And the date of the collection, if we can just, Mr. Wolf, just focus in on that. Thank you. The date of the collection is January 29th, 2022, correct?
Yes, that's correct.
Is it a fair conclusion from this evidence bag and your experience on the matter to conclude that former Trooper Proctor was the person who collected the evidence and put it in the bag?
I have no knowledge of who actually collected and put in the bag. I can only read what I see on the monitor.
In terms of, and if we could, Mr. Wolk, please take that down and put back up the side-to-side images and depictions of the T-shirt and the hoodie. Do you know the journey, if you will, of those two items before you received them?
No, I do not.
The debris that you ultimately saw on the hoodie and the T-shirt, and that which may or may not have also been additionally in the bag, do you know where that debris would have been picked up from?
No, I don't know the source of the debris.
And you were not provided with information as to the potential source of that debris, correct?
No.
Were you aware of whether or not the debris, whether those items had been on the floor of an ambulance or a floor of a hospital?
No, I do not have any information like that.
Is it important to maintain the sanitary condition of evidence generally to avoid contamination?
We do our best to avoid contamination once we receive items into evidence, yes.
And what are some of the protocols that are used to avoid contamination of evidence generally?
Generally, wearing gloves, putting items in packaging, bleaching any materials or utensils that we're going to use, or using disposable materials, sterile materials when possible or necessary. We also wear lab coats when processing evidence.
Is another protocol technique to separate out pieces of evidence to prevent cross-contamination?
Sometimes we will separate pieces of evidence. If the items are already mixed in with each other, then the items are kept together, can be kept together.
Do you know the chain of custody of either the hoodie or the t-shirt?
I only have record of the chain of custody from when it was delivered to the lab.
So before any delivery to the lab, you do not have knowledge of the chain of custody of either of those two items?
No, I just know which detective unit dropped the items off.
And which detective unit was that?
Norfolk Detective Unit.
What I would like to now do is to, we could now take that down. Thank you, Mr. Wolf. I want to sort of speciate, if you will, separate out the evidence that you have talked about so far so that it's clear what you submitted and what may have been submitted by others to the lab. Do you understand that concept generally?
Yes.
Thank you. So what I'm going to do is to give categories, and if you would be kind enough to say, I submitted it by some other person, that would be helpful. Any items that were collected from the vehicle, who submitted those to the lab or brought them to the lab?
I did.
The swabs from the red Solo cups.
I submitted the swabs.
The drinking glass that you were presented with at Canton PD.
I submitted that item.
The two clothing items that we just saw on the screen, the hoodie and the t-shirt.
Those were submitted by the Norfolk Detective Unit.
Were there also any fingernails that were part of the investigation and that you had knowledge of?
Yes.
Describe what those were, please.
Fingernails may be collected at the medical examiner's office, and they're clippings from the top of the fingernails of the victim.
And were those submitted to the lab?
Yes.
And by whom?
By the Norfolk Detective Unit.
And the phrase known blood standards, are you familiar with that phrase?
Yes.
Can you tell the jurors, please, what that means?
A known blood standard is a sample of blood that is collected from an identified person.
And which person were those known blood standards related to your knowledge in this matter?
We received a tube of blood that was identified as belonging to John O'Keefe.
And with regard to the fingernails and the known blood standards, who submitted those to the lab?
The Norfolk County Detective Unit.
So am I correct to conclude that for those items that you submitted to the lab, you knew sort of their journey, if you will, but that those items that were submitted by you, I think you referred to as Norfolk County, was your parlance?
Yes, correct.
You don't have knowledge about those other than that they were submitted by them?
Prior to them arriving at the lab, correct. I have no knowledge of what occurred, where they were stored or anything like that before that.
And no knowledge of those items not submitted by you would include no knowledge of the chain of custody of those items, correct?
No knowledge prior to them being received into the lab. That is correct.
Your Honor, if I may have a moment, please. It'll
Okay.
probably be 30 to 45 seconds. Thank you. Bear with me, please. So the questions I have for Ms. Hartnett this time, thank you for answering my questions, Ms.
Thank you.
All right, Mr. Brennan, any redirect?
You mentioned that you had an opportunity to observe a paper bag that had red Solo cups in it,
Yes, that's correct.
and the red Solo cups had a coloring of red in the cups.
Yes.
You'd never seen blood preserved in cups like that before?
Objection, Your Honor.
To the form. Sustained.
Had you ever seen blood stored in cups like that before?
No.
Do you know the circumstances of storing that blood?
Can you rephrase that question, please?
When the blood was stored in the cups, do you know the circumstances?
Sorry, Mr. Brennan. Your Honor, objection. Can we have a sidebar, please? It's important.
Okay.
It's important. Of course, it's important because you're being biased towards prosecution. Y'all don't go through menopause. It's a pain in the butt.
The coloring in those cups, do you know firsthand what that comprised of, what the item was?
Are you asking me if I knew what the contents specifically of the cup
Yes.
were? No, I do not.
And so the red cups with the red spots stored in them, do you know the circumstances surrounding made to try
I
to
don't know,
preserve that
Chip.
evidence?
I wish I did.
Can you just be more specific in what you mean by circumstances?
Sure. Do you know where those red cups came?
The collection.
You weren't at the scene that morning, were you?
No, I was not.
Do you know what the circumstances or the challenges were that morning?
No, I'm not aware.
You said that you respond to active scenes and sometimes, like in this case, after the event happens?
Yes, that's correct.
Is there a difference when you're at an active scene as opposed to when you arrive at a scene that is past the event?
I would say multiple units are working at the same time, attempting to document, preserve, and collect evidence.
You were asked a few questions about the top back of the Lexus SUV.
Yes, that's correct.
When you were first asked the question, you were asked if you had studied that area, and you said you didn't recall if you looked at that area.
I did look at the area. I looked over the entire vehicle, but I didn't know anything specific in that area, no.
When you say you looked over the entire vehicle, did you look over the back of the vehicle as well?
Yes, the only part I did not look at was the roof of the vehicle.
Did you study all sides equally? Did you spend time with the entire vehicle?
I believe I made an effort, yes, to look at the entire vehicle.
When you studied the back of the vehicle, not the right side or left side, the back, middle, did you find any
I did not note any, no.
scratches?
The only scratches I noted were ones that I had spoken of previously on the right.
When you looked at the left side of that Lexus, did you find any dents or scratches?
Nothing that I noted, no.
Did you find any hair on that side of the car?
Not that I noted, no.
Did you find any dents on the right side quarter of that Lexus?
I did not note any. I also did not examine the interior of the vehicle.
You said that you removed the hair. What do you do after you remove the hair?
The hair is placed into a small glassine envelope, then placed into a larger manila envelope, and then I signed and sealed it, gave it the appropriate case number and item number, and then secured it in our storage room.
Can that hair be further tested?
Yes.
Is that something you would do or a different person?
I don't perform testing on the hair. I performed a microscopic examination of it, and then additional testing can be performed by a different unit.
Let me ask you some questions about where you found the hair. You saw the two different angle pictures. Yes.
Yes, pictures of that yesterday.
You also showed some video where the car had snow and ice on it. Is water a conduit? Does water ever act as an adhesive?
Objection, Your Honor.
Watch the form of the question.
Okay. Why don't I show you similar video that you were shown yesterday, but we've clarified it so it's more clear. I'm going to ask you to take a look at video 125.
Surface tension numbnuts. Brennan doesn't know what surface tension is. It's science, Brennan. It's science. I was gonna explain it, but I think y'all know how hair sticks to stuff. It's science. It's called surface tension, Brennan.
Can we stop that, please? And can you see that's 5:51:54 p.m. on 1/29/22? It didn't have that snow on the right back near that taillight, did it?
Objection, Your Honor.
This vehicle for the first time, right. You found it. You see the red back taillight, the piece of red that's showing?
I do see that, yes.
In reference or relative to that red, was the hair to the right, left, below?
I don't recall at this time.
Okay. Do you see the ice or snow on the right side quarter panel of that Lexus?
I don't see it on the quarter panel. I'm not sure what you're speaking of.
If we could move that video forward, please, to 702. And 749, please. Forward just a little bit, please. Stop. Okay. There's still remnants of snow. Did it look like that when you first saw it?
I didn't see any snow vehicle when I saw it.
You could ask forward, please. Some 22.
No.
I want to show you some photos and ask you a few questions. If we could have 147C, please. If you could close up. Do you remember what that's a picture of or a photograph of?
Yes,
What is it?
that is a tear that was on the right sleeve of the gray sweatshirt.
The thread is coming from the side of that hole.
Yes.
Those threads, could you pull those threads and pull them up by hand if you want to?
Can you repeat that question?
If you pulled on those threads, could you pull thread from that hole if you wanted to? Those threads?
Yes.
Okay. And what were they?
They were loose. The fibers had started to separate up from the shirt. Separate and weave. I don't want to say they were separated from the shirt completely. The weave was starting to separate.
If we could have photo 57. Are those the red cups that you saw?
Yes.
And what color is the fluid inside?
I noted there was red-brown stains inside.
Okay. And do you see that white object, the rag or the paper towel?
Objection, Your Honor. Scope.
Yes, sustained.
Well, you were asked about, you can take that down. You were asked about who had custody of items. You only have custody of items once you receive them, right?
Yes, that's correct.
If somebody had access to that rag and dipped it in those cups and then smeared it on the taillight, and you went and tested, would you potentially be able to find that red liquid on the taillight?
Objection, Your Honor.
Sustained.
If strands of cloth were pulled from clothing and placed,
Sustained.
when you get to a scene and you examine an area, if you don't see it firsthand, is there any way you can date when items are placed on an object?
I'm sorry, can you ask that one more time, please?
Sure. When you look at an area like a taillight, if you found blood or cloth or another item in that area, would you know when it was placed in that area?
Objection, Your Honor.
I'll allow that.
I think there are really just too many variables to say either way.
And if an item like blood or cloth was placed in that area, is that something you would be looking for in your examination?
In which area?
Say the taillight, for example.
If there was an object placed in the taillight, would I be looking for that? I'd be looking for any item evidence. I'm not specifically looking for anything. I'm just looking for anything that would potentially be evidence.
Thank you. I have no further questions.
Anything further, Mr.
Briefly,
Lisson?
Your Honor.
If we could, Your Honor, have 147C republished. Would it be acceptable to move it along if Ms. Gil, oh, you have it? Okay. If we could have Ms. Gilman, I have just one question, Your Honor. Thank you very much, Ms. Gilman. 147C, I believe it.
Okay, I think you already had it up there.
No, it's this one. Yeah,
Okay.
exactly. Thank you, Your Honor. Do you recall Mr. Brennan asking you just moments ago a question about this depiction?
Yes,
And to be clear, this is the right sleeve of the gray hoodie, correct?
yes, that's correct.
You didn't perform any analysis of this area of the right hoodie, did you?
I performed damage analysis on each of those tears on the sleeve.
Right, but you didn't perform an analysis as to the source of that item, what it could be, correct?
Can you rephrase that question, please?
Sure. You didn't do any analysis of what could have caused that hole in the sweatshirt, did you?
No, I did not.
No further questions. Again, thank you for answering my question.
You're right.
Ms. Hartnett, you are all set.
I wanted to correct something from the record today. I wasn't sure when was appropriate to do that.
Okay, do you recall which lawyer asked you the question?
Yes, Mr. Alessi asked me the question.
Are we going to proceed along with that?
So why don't I see you outside?
Thank you.
Oh. Is this a witness being truthful or is this coaching to me? I don't like this. I don't like it.
All right, so Ms. Harnett, I am going to let you step down because questions from both sides are completed.
Okay,
So
thank
thank you, though. Okay, Mr. Brennan, who is your next witness?
Next is Dr. Scotty Bella.
Okay.
Matt?
Yes.
Iffy. I thought defense was going to call. Oop, what? Dang it, I didn't mean to crap. Sorry for Scorpio. Stupid autocorrect.
Why don't I see counsel at sidebar, please?
You just saw them at sidebar. I thought defense was going to call her this time because she determined that the death was undetermined. And the government was kind of ticked off about it. Or the state or the Commonwealth or whatever they're called. They wanted her to change it to homicide. How did I get... How did I get 1 foot bigger than the other? Does it look like 1 foot's bigger than the other? I don't know how that happened. this same size crochet hook and the same stitch count. It must be tension. I think you're right, because I think it's tension. Gotta be. Yeah, so that's gotta be tension.
You solemnly swear the evidence given before the jury in the case now here to the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth. So help you God.
I do.
Close enough.
Good morning, Doctor. All right, Mr. Brennan, whenever you're ready.
Thank you, Your Honor. Good morning. Could you please introduce yourself to the jury?
Good morning. My name is Irini Scoribello. That's spelled IRINISCORDI-BELLO. I am a medical examiner employed by the Commonwealth of Massachusetts.
How long have you been a medical examiner for?
In the state of Massachusetts since December of 2016 and 8.
Did you attend medical school?
Yes, I did.
Where did you attend medical school?
I completed medical school in New York City at the Mount Sinai School of Medicine, now known as ICANN School of Medicine.
Did you attend a residency?
Yes, I completed my residency in anatomic pathology at the Mount Sinai Hospital.
Is that what you specialized in during your residency?
Yes.
After your residency, did you go right to the medical examiner's office or did you work anywhere else?
After my residency, I completed a one-year fellowship in forensic pathology that was done at the Office of the Chief Medical Examiner for the City of New York. And then I went to work as a medical examiner.
Is there a certain type of doctor you are? Do you have a particular?
Yes, I am a forensic pathologist.
What are your duties at the medical examiner's office?
My duties and responsibilities at the medical examiner's office include performing examinations and autopsies to determine the cause and manner of death in cases that fall under our jurisdiction.
How many other doctors work with you at the medical examiner's office?
I think there's close to 20 of us. I don't know the exact number.
The medical examiner's office, are you responsible for all counties in Massachusetts as far as doing examinations and autopsies?
No, I am, my primary location is in Westfield, Massachusetts, where one of our satellite offices is, and we cover Worcester County and the entire western part of the state. There's 3 offices in the state, the one in Westfield, the one in Boston, and the office at the Cape, in Cape Cod.
You mentioned that part of what you do is to try to determine manner and cause of death.
Yes.
I use the word autopsy generally without too much detail. Can you describe for the jury what the process is when you're trying to determine the manner and cause of death?
You would like me to explain what an autopsy is?
Please.
An autopsy is a large surgical procedure with 2 main parts. The external examination, which is an examination of the outside of the body, where we document physical characteristics such as hair color, eye color. We document any identifying features such as scars or tattoos, height, weight. And then we also document any signs of disease or any signs of injury on the body. The second part of the autopsy is the internal examination, where we make surgical type incisions on the body and we examine the internal organs of the neck, the chest, the abdomen and the pelvis, as well as the head and the brain. Part of the autopsy procedure, and this depends on the kind of case we're doing an autopsy on, might include other studies such as taking evidence, toxicology, which is done on almost every case, and any additional what an autopsy is.
Do you ever seek the assistance of any other doctors or professionals that have specialties in your determination in an autopsy about manner and cause of death?
Yes, absolutely. We often, well, like I mentioned before, we perform toxicology on almost all our cases, and those samples are sent to the toxicology state lab. We also have a board-certified neuropathologist and cardiac pathologist in our office, and very often we will consult with them in determining cause and manner of death.
Are cause of death and manner of death the same or two different things?
They're two completely different things.
Can you explain to us what the difference is between the two of them?
Yes. Cause of death refers to the disease or the injury that initiates a sequence of events that ultimately leads to someone's death. So that disease or that injury can be a natural disease such as atherosclerosis or coronary artery disease, or it can be some sort of injury. The manner of death has to do with the circumstances that led to the death. So there are 5 manners of death that we use in our practice. The most common one is actually natural. Natural means cause of death, the disease that killed them was due to natural causes, and that would include heart disease, diabetes, cancer. All those are natural processes that take place in the body. If trauma or an injury is involved, then we have to decide then let me back up. If trauma or an injury is involved, then the manner of death is no longer natural. And therefore, it could be that the trauma was inflicted in an accidental manner, in which case the manner becomes accident. If it was inflicted by another person with the intent to cause harm, then the manner becomes a homicide. And if the trauma, and when I say trauma, I should include both physical and chemical trauma, chemical when it comes to intoxications due to drugs, etc. If the trauma was self-inflicted, then the manner of death is suicide. So we have natural, accident, homicide, suicide, and then the 5th one is what we call undetermined or could not be determined. That is when the circumstances in a case are not entirely known or clear to us, and the information that we have does not support one manner of death over another. In that case, we classify the manner of death as undetermined.
When you are conducting an autopsy and making an analysis and attempting to reach a conclusion, you said when you looked at in a case, is your case and what you do different than procedure in a prosecution's case?
Can you repeat the question? I'm not sure I understand.
I can. When you're making your determinations about cause or manner of death, do you have any limitations?
Okay, something that is determined by the autopsy. That is my opinion or our office opinion as to the disease or injury that led to that person's death. So that is, I don't have any cases where, the body's decomposed and we're not able to do, all the testing necessary. But in most cases, the cause of death depends on my findings during the autopsy. The manner of death, yes, there are limitations because it's circumstance driven. And so the circumstances might not be known to us at the time of the autopsy. They might not be known to us ever. And therefore, while the cause of death is my medical opinion, the manner of death depends on information I get from other people.
Are you always able to reach a conclusion on manner of death?
No, that's why I said that in cases that we cannot, that manner of death is classified as undetermined.
I want to now ask you about whether or not you examined John O'Keefe.
Yes, I did the autopsy on Mr. O'Keefe.
When you examined Mr. O'Keefe, did you work with a team or by yourself?
No, we always work in a team. The team is made up of the medical examiner and a medical examiner's assistant that helps with the actual performance of the autopsy, especially when we examine the head. And then, of course, we work with the toxicology lab and is our neuropathologist.
The medical examiner's office, is that a division of the Massachusetts State Police?
No,
Is it a division of the Norfolk County District Attorney's Office?
no,
Is the medical examiner's office independent?
yes.
When you conduct an autopsy, are representatives of law enforcement or district attorney's office able or allowed to attend an autopsy?
Yes, they're usually allowed to attend the autopsy if they wish.
Is that an uncommon practice?
No, it's not uncommon.
Would you remember when your autopsy of Mr. O'Keefe occurred?
Yes, I performed the autopsy on January 31st of 2022.
If you have notes,
Yes, I do.
I think you'd be able to use them, but we'll just want to indicate that you're reading from your notes if that's the case. Thank you.
So you can use your notes, doctor, just.
Thank you.
Thank you, Your Honor. When you began the autopsy of Mr. O'Keefe, do you know who, if any, representatives from the Massachusetts State Police or the Norfolk County District Attorney's Office were present?
I don't remember their names. I do believe there were two individuals, and every person who attends an autopsy has to sign a log, and their names would be logged in our records. I don't remember their names.
What is the role of law enforcement relative to the actual physical autopsy? Do they have any role?
No, they're not part of the autopsy. They don't have a role. Their role is to observe. Sometimes they will ask questions, and based on my findings, they might, go on and do their investigation.
Does your office photograph things of interest like injuries on the person that you're doing the autopsy on?
Yes, we do.
Is law enforcement allowed to take their own photographs as well?
Yes,
Did you in fact memorialize your findings in this case?
I did.
Are there a number of different ways in which you memorialize your findings?
Yes.
I'm sorry.
I took notes, physical notes, pen and paper. There's a report that's issued within 90 days of the completion of the autopsy, and then photographs, digital photographs.
You mentioned a report is due in 90 days. Is that often referred to as an autopsy report?
Yes.
Why 90 days?
That is the standard that is set by the National Association of Medical Examiners. We're part of NAME, and therefore we try to have a finalized report for all our cases within 90 days because we know that families are waiting for these reports, and therefore we do our best to finish a report within 90 days.
Did you in fact complete a so-called autopsy report in this case?
Yes, I did.
In addition to the autopsy report, well, included in the autopsy report, do you make handwritten notations about locations of injuries?
Yes.
And share with us how's that done. Is there a picture or a graph?
There's a diagram, a body diagram that we use to mark the location of injuries.
May I approach, Your Honor?
Yes. Yes.
Do you generally recognize what these documents are?
Yes, these are my diagrams from Mr. O'Keefe's autopsy,
And did you just very basically describe each one of them?
some of them. Yes, the first one is a body diagram. A lot of things have been whited out, but it's the diagram that I would use to make note of any injuries. The second one is a diagram of the face and the skull. I would also use this diagram to make notes as to any injuries on the face. And the third one is a diagram of the inside of the skull, what we call the base of the skull, as well as different views of the brain itself. Again, I would make notes to point out different injuries.
As you are noting injuries in your autopsy report, these diagrams, they start off blank?
They start off blank and then they're filled out as we go along.
And you fill out all the details you find important in your report?
Correct.
For reference, and to assist us, I have some blank diagrams that I may ask you to point out things on the blank diagram for us.
Okay,
And Your Honor, I'd ask permission, I've spoken to defense, to use these simply as a chalk.
Sure.
No objection, Your Honor.
Before you begin an autopsy, do you seek any medical records if available?
yes. When a case is called into our office, depending on the time and the day that it is called in, our intake department, who are the people initially on the phone taking the information, will start asking for both medical records as well as police reports. So in the morning, when we start the autopsy, it's possible that we have some records. Sometimes if a decedent is brought to us from the hospital, there might be some records that come along with the body. But to answer your question, yes, we always ask for medical records, what we call PCP records, which are primary care physician records, any records from a hospital where the decedent may have been investigative reports, police reports.
Do you recall whether you had access to John O'Keefe's medical records from Good Samaritan Hospital?
I did have access, yes, in the day, I believe the day of and the following day.
May I approach, Your Honor?
Yes.
Subject to any later redactions, I would move the Good Samaritan medical records.
No objection, Your Honor.
Exhibit 155.
This time I would move for identification all photos of Mr. O'Keefe's injuries at Good Samaritan Hospital just for identification.
Okay.
Exhibit JJ for ID.
Further, this time I'd move for identification all OCME Office of Medical Examiner photos.
Exhibit KK for ID.
This will all CSSS photos.
Understanding of the affidavit.
With the court's permission, Ms. Gilman, if you could put up the diagram, full body. Could enlarge that a little more. Thank you very much. Could you explain this to us?
Yes, this is a diagram that I use during every autopsy. As you can see, we note the name of the decedent. Every case has its own number. In this case, it was 22-1697. And then we take note of, as I mentioned, during the external examination, physical characteristics such as hair, eyes, teeth. And then on this diagram, we would note any scars we see on the body, any tattoos we see on the body, any injuries we see on the body, and any therapeutic interventions. Those would be things that are sometimes done either by emergency medical personnel or at the hospital. Everything would be on this diagram.
Now, if you could take us through, I'm going to ask you, we'll go body part by body part, if that's okay. Mr. O'Keefe's face, the front of his face. And if you
Yes.
could, if you could enlarge that, Ms. Gilman, thank you very much. Did you notice any injuries on Mr. O'Keefe's face? And if so, could you, I think there's a pointer available for you, doctor? If you could
Yes.
point out on the diagram what you observed.
So on the diagram, well, first of all, there was medical intervention on Mr. O'Keefe that included an endotracheal tube that had been placed to help him breathe. But once all the intervention, all the medical devices were removed, I observed on his right upper eyelid a 1 centimeter laceration. So as we're looking at the diagram, this is the right side and this is the left side. So on his right eyelid, there was a small laceration. I also observed abrasions on the anterior and the left aspect of the nose. So the nose would be here on the front and the left aspect. Abrasions are scrapes. Lacerations are tears in the skin. I should probably explain that. Then there was some bleeding and some swelling of the eyelids of both eyes.
Does that complete your analysis?
For the front of the face, correct. Yes.
May I approach, Your Honor?
Yes.
Doctor, I'm showing you a photograph. Do you recognize what's in that photograph?
Yes, this is a photograph of Mr. O'Keefe's face.
Does that photograph depict any of the observations or injuries you made that you just described to the jury?
Yes, it shows the small laceration that I on the right eyelid. Over his eyelids. And that's pretty much all I can see because it's a side view.
Is there an apparatus?
There is an what we call an endotracheal tube, as well as a C collar or a C stabilization collar. That's something that would have been placed on him by medical personnel.
All right, this is the evidence that asked for the instruction.
Okay. All right. All right. So, folks, during the testimony of Dr. Scordi-Bello, photos will be introduced to you. They're photographs of John O'Keefe that Dr. Scordi-Bello from the autopsy. So you'll have them in the jury room with you. I'll put them in an envelope, or I'll ask that they be put in an envelope point. We'd ask that you make sure you look at it. These photos are not pleasant, and you may find that they're graphic, not in any way be influenced by the fact that these photographs may be unpleasant occurrence and not based on pity or sympathy for Mr. O'Keefe, which might be occasioned by these photographs. So consider me as the draw your attention to a clinical medical status or to the nature of Mr. O'Keefe's injuries or to the nature of the incident itself. So they'll be displayed up on the screen for you as well.
The last exhibit is Exhibit 156.
Thank you.
I like that instruction.
Ms. Gilman, could you show the jury? And Doctor, can you point out the injuries you were describing by using the diagram? Or when you were using the diagram?
So the laceration, the small laceration that I previously did discoloration.
Sorry, guys. I don't know what happened. I guess StreamYard didn't want to show you all the pictures either. Although I know Court TV is not going to show them.
You mentioned that there was something about his eyes that was notable.
Yes, there was bleeding or hemorrhage, as we call it, on the eyelids as well as swelling.
I'm going to ask you more detail about that later, but was that observation important in your ultimate diagnosis or? I'm showing you another photograph. Do you recognize that?
Yes, this is another picture showing Mr. O'Keefe's face. Again, the medical intervention is present, and you can see more clearly now the discoloration on.
For your ultimate conclusions and diagnosis?
Yes.
What the fudge, StreamYard?
With the court's permission, I'd like to show this to the jury.
Yes.
P645, please. Significant regarding Mr. O'Keefe's eye area.
So I noted that there was discoloration, that's bleeding, that's blood, that's under those eyelids. The eyelids appear puffy, that's what we call edema. And then also patches, one here, and then the other one or front.
Dr. Portobello.
The observations that I made on the chest were that there was, as I mentioned before, there were defibrillator pads on the body, and there was an abrasion that's very commonly seen in people who have undergone resuscitation. Internally, that abrasion and the whole associated with some anterior rib fractures, which are also seen in cases of resuscitation, but I didn't make any other for abdomen.
I'd like to move to the arms and the hands. If we could come down just a little bit. Let's begin with Mr. O'Keefe's hand or hands. Did you make any observations regarding Mr. O'Keefe's hand or hands?
Yes. On his upper right arm, I noted that he had a superficial abrasion. So it would have been, move it down a little bit. Yeah, thank you. Doesn't seem to be doing a very good job. Okay, somehow doesn't want to
Sorry
work.
if that's not working well.
It's projecting here, but not on the actual picture.
Maybe a second pointer?
I can do it here.
Okay, great.
Yeah. So on the right upper medial, a superficial abrasion. Again, that's a scrape. Then on his arm, so not exactly on this aspect of the arm, but on the back side of the arm, which would be in the back of the diagram, there were multiple abrasions, which I described as ranging from 2 to 3 millimeters and up to 7 centimeters. Then, yeah, if you could move the diagram down, please. Again, there is a back to this diagram. I don't know if you could put that on the screen. There we go. So this is now the right side and this is the left. I noted that there were 2 bruises on the back of his right hand. Also a faint. And then moving down to the lower extremities or the legs, if you could please show the front scrape on the side of his right knee.
May I approach your arm?
Yes.
Doctor, I'm handing you a photograph. Do you recognize what's in that photograph?
Yes.
What is it?
This is the back of Mr. O'Keefe's right hand, I believe.
Is that fair and accurate depiction of how his hand appeared when you examined him?
Yes.
Will this be evidence, please?
No objection, Your Honor.
Okay.
Exhibit 158.
With the court's permission,
I'm sorry, y'all. If you want to go watch it somewhere else, I would not hurt my feelings.
To a vein for fluids, for intravenous fluid. So, but I did not put that in my report. I just described it as a contusion.
where medical personnel put intravenous or other types of support into somebody's hand?
Yes, it's very common for the skin to bruise when someone tries to get access to a blood vessel.
The other coloration that is unrelated to those two small points, would you have a description of what those are?
No.
I'd also like to show you exhibit number 1. Exhibit number 1, please. Thank you. You use the word superficial. What does that mean?
Is on the superficial layers of the skin, usually the epidermis and sometimes the dermis, but there's no penetration of the skin.
When you're assessing to determine whether there's any penetration, do you measure the length of the wound or
Well,
the abrasion?
Penetration would be measuring the depth. If there was actual penetration, I would have to measure how deep into the skin. And we have to measure the or scratches and those underlying fat or muscle, and therefore and gave a range, but I did not measure their depth.
As a team practice during an autopsy, doctor, if there was penetration or depth, would you, as a routine, measure that?
I would make a note of it.
Are there any such autopsy findings or reports about depth?
No, I did not make a note on the depth of these ones.
Do you have an opinion to a reasonable degree of medical certainty as to how those superficial abrasions occurred?
I do not.
you just saw, and I should ask you the same question. Do you have an opinion to a reasonable degree of medical certainty how that coloration, aside from the medical intervention, do you have an opinion to a reasonable degree of medical certainty how the other discoloration happened on Mr. O'Keefe's hand?
I can state to a reasonable degree of medical certainty that that's a bruise, a contusion, but I cannot tell you how it occurred.
And to summarize finally what we've been through so far regarding the scrape on Mr. O'Keefe's right eye, can you provide an opinion that scrape occurred?
No, I cannot.
You mentioned for us that when you looked at Mr. O'Keefe's legs, you observed bruising on his, or a small scratch on his right knee.
Correct.
I don't want to summarize it. Can you describe that
Can we turn
more
the lights on,
specifically?
please?
Thank you.
Yes, I just,
Did you,
no, I did not.
was the mark scratch on Mr. O'Keefe's right knee on the inside or the outside of the knee?
It was on the lateral aspect, which would be the outside.
Thank you. May I approach?
Yes.
Doctor, I'm handing you a photograph. Do you recognize what's in that photograph?
Yes,
What is it?
this is a picture of Mr. O'Keefe's lower extremities, his legs.
Is it a fair, accurate depiction of how his knee appeared when you did the autopsy? Sorry, we'll go to the evidence, please. No objection, Your Honor.
Okay.
159.
Thank you.
With the court's permission, I'd like to show the jury 9467.
Yes.
You used the word lateral and you talked about abrasion or a scrape. Could you look at this photograph and could we enlarge it, Ms. Gilman, and could you point out to the jury and explain what it is that you saw?
Yes, you can see the abrasion here with a little bit of adjacent discoloration, but this is what I was describing.
If you could zoom back out, please. And you didn't see any similar type bruising or abrasions on the left knee?
No,
During your autopsy, did you notice any injuries internally to Mr. O'Keefe's rib area?
yes, I did note that there were rib fractures on the anterior, that would be the front, of his fourth and fifth ribs.
And so would that be his left or right side?
It would be both the right and the left, and it would be the part of the rib that is closer to the sternum.
Is there a number of ribs that had fractures or are they connected as one?
The fourth and the fifth, both on the right and the left, close to the sternum.
Have you, in your experience, ribs fractured medical?
Yes.
Given your experience and your study of Mr. O'Keefe's body, do you have an opinion, degree of medical certainty, how those rib fractures?
Yes.
I'd like to show you a different diagram, one of the head area. If we could enlarge the bottom right. Thank you. Using that diagram, could you assist us, doctor, and explain to us any observations about the head?
Yes. The main observation was a laceration that is a skin tear on the back of Mr. O'Keefe's head to the right of midline. So this is midline here, so we call the right occipital area, and abrasion over it that right here. So this was laceration.
Well, the inside of Mr. O'Keefe's skull. But first, I want to just show you a photograph relative to it. Showing you a photograph. You recognize what's in that photograph?
Yes, this is a picture taken of Mr. O'Keefe's head. The hair has been shaved off so that the injury can be clearly photographed, and it's a laceration with an associated abrasion.
Thank you. Try and move this into evidence.
Okay.
No objection, Your Honor.
Oh, I'm sure. I've broken ribs doing CPR. It is not a good feeling at all.
When you examine the laceration, do you measure it?
Yes,
Did you measure it in this case?
I did measure it.
How long was the laceration?
I measured it 2.5 inches.
Do you examine the body before you begin to intrude? Do you examine the outside of a person's body first, or is there a certain procedure or order?
Yes, the external examination is done first, and the internal examination is done second.
I want to that photograph that you just recognized.
This is the laceration that I noted, and this is the scrape that's associated with it.
After you make observations, what are your next steps in an autopsy?
The internal examination, after the external is performed and pictures are taken, then we proceed with the internal examination of both as I mentioned before, the torso, the body, as well as the head.
I'd like you to take us through the internal examination. Did you have a chance to look internally behind the laceration you saw on the back of Mr. O'Keefe's head?
Yes.
And when you did that, could you describe for us what you saw?
Yes. The way we examine the head is we make an incision with a scalpel behind the ear from one side to the other. That allows us to reflect or pull back the scalp, and that will expose the skull underneath. we do this carefully. Clearly the face. And when we reflected and when we pulled back the scalp, I noted that there was blood, what we call hemorrhage, under the laceration or associated with laceration on the back of the right head. And then furthermore, there were skull fractures associated with that abrasion on the right.
The skull fractures in same or different area?
The skull fractures were in multiple areas of the skull, what we call the base of the skull. Imagine the base of the skull is sort of a bowl, and the brain sits on top or in the bowl. When the brain is removed, you can have a very good view of the base of the skull. So when the brain was removed and we were able to look at the base of the skull, I noted that there were multiple fractures that appeared to be originating from the area of the laceration.
When you made your examination, that lead you to your opinion, or was there more you needed to look at before you came?
Part of we removed the brain, and as is our protocol, I saved the brain in a special solution called formalin that allows the brain to become a little. Go ahead and examine it, because when I did look at the brain, I noted that there were brain, and therefore I saved it. The brain ultimately went to our Boston office, and our neuropathologist, Dr. Stonebridge, examined it and issued a report.
Did you engage in any type of analysis on your own about any injury to Mr. O'Keefe's brain?
I noted the kind of injuries I could see superficially. I had the brain after it was fixed and pictures of it, but I did not issue a report on it. The whole point was for our neuropathologist to examine it closely and issue a more detailed report.
I have a few more photos. Would now be an appropriate time for a break, Your Honor?
Yes. So, jurors, why don't we take 15 or 20 minutes, okay?
All rise for the jury.
Why are her breaks so long? I'm used to court breaks being like 10 minutes. What is she doing? Going back there and drinking a White Claw on the breaks? Guys, I don't know what StreamYard's deal is today. I'm so sorry. are we going to talk about for 15 or 20 minutes? And because apparently she doesn't know. Like Alessi even read them to her the other day. Shall, not may, not could, not might, shall. And she still didn't let him do it. And I swear, if she really said what everybody says she said yesterday and they don't do anything about that, after all this time they've wanted her off the bench. What are you talking about? Oh, Becky Hill. Is that what you're talking about? Yes. Let me see if I can find an article or something about it. Come on, StreamYard. I don't have the patience today. I've had a bad week emotionally. Pain-wise has been okay. Emotions have been roller coaster. Literally roller coaster. Well, not literally, but you know what I mean. I wish they were really literally roller coaster because I want to go ride roller coasters. I've been watching roller coasters on YouTube for a week. Oh, look, she's in a cage. Come on, play. Play. Play, play, play. Play video. Oh, the charges include perjury. Finally, somebody that perjured themselves gets arrested for perjury. Yes. Columbia, South Carolina. Becky Hill, the former, is it Colton County? Clerk of the court who became a controversial figure in Alex Murdaugh's double murder trial has been arrested. According to jail records, Hill was taken into custody Wednesday in Colton County and faces 2 counts of misconduct in office and a count of obstruction of justice. This looks good in a cage, doesn't she? According to her arrest warrant, allegedly obstructed justice when she made sealed evidence available to third parties in violation of a court order. Is when she used her former office to promote a book she co-authored, Behind the Doors of Justice, The Murdaugh Murders, and when she received funds for personal use from Title 4D incentive funds and the Colton County Clerk of Court office. She was released after making a $30,000 bond set in Colton County. Attorney Joseph M. McCullough sent the following statement regarding Hill's charges. As trial, today's indictment is yet another disturbing turn in a case defined by misconduct. The perjury charge against the former Colton County Clerk of Court stems from her false denial during a jury tampering hearing that she allowed improper access to trial exhibits. SLED's investigation now shows that denial was untrue. She also denied having improper contact with jurors despite sworn affidavits and testimony from 2 jurors, including my client, Ms. Crosby, confirming that she did. Ms. Crosby removed on the first day of deliberations because she was deliberately targeted. Accountability. The public deserves answers. Hill also faces $50,000 bond after a hearing on Wednesday. According to the warrant, Hill allegedly did not tell the truth during a previous trial concerning potential jury tampering for the 2023 Alex Murdaugh trial. Hill told former Chief Justice Jean Toll that she had not shown sealed evidence to third parties, which is contrary to evidence obtained from February 28, 2023, when the press was allegedly shown evidence that was court-ordered to be sealed. I watched that hearing. I should dig it up and we should do it. Hill rose to prominence during Alex Murdaugh's widely publicized 6-week trial for the murders of his wife Maggie and their 22-year-old son Paul. Aw, Pawpaw. That's what he called him on the stand, Pawpaw. Since the trial, the former clerk has been the center of various ethical concerns. The South Carolina Law Enforcement Division, SLED, has investigated Hill since 2024, looking into whether or not she tampered with the jury in Murdaugh's trial and whether she used her elected position for personal gain. In addition to SLED's investigation, Murdaugh's attorneys have alleged Hill tried to sway jurors toward a guilty verdict to help sell copies of her book, Behind the Doors of Justice, The Murdaugh Murders, which had its publishing halted after a separate plagiarism scandal. Retired South Carolina Supreme Court Chief Justice Jean Toll ultimately said Hill was lured by the siren call of celebrity. That was so awesome. I love that when she said that in that hearing. That was just wonderful. I loved Jean Toll. She was amazing. And noted her interactions with jurors were inappropriate but did not lead to Murdaugh's conviction. Hill has denied these allegations and eventually resigned from her office in May 2024. Her attorney said her resignation was not related to any state investigations. Yeah, right. Murdaugh's attorneys Dick Harpootlian and Jim Griffin released the following statement Wednesday following Hill's arrest. Oh, this is going to be so good. You know Poot loved this. Oh, you know Poot loved this. It was a PR bond? Are you kidding me? Oh my God. Oh my God. You know Poot is like dancing. He is, I would love to have seen Poot's face when he found out about this. We are aware of the charges filed against Becky Hill, and while these developments are serious, they are not surprising. We have long raised our concerns about her conduct during and after the trial, and this arrest further underscores the need to protect the integrity of the judicial process. Every defendant is entitled to a fair and impartial trial, and we look forward to Alex Murdaugh finally getting that fair treatment. You can watch Wednesday's full hearing in the video below. I wonder how long it is. I wonder if it'll. I don't think it's going to play. Oh, we're behind. How far behind? He was so great because I didn't know Trump. I think he was like special. They brought in anyway because like he brought in a special judge. And then got G. Tall in for the hearing because Murdaugh's lawyers.
I passed a rig when I was coming.
He didn't get a fair trial. He needs her in and asked her if she did. StreamYard is out of control today. Really?
She does move away for reading an explanation of the penalties, Your Honor. We're aware of them.
Okay. All right. And before I move forward, yes, Your Honor. I'll show you Allison Fitzgerald. Okay. Is there anything you'd like to say? No recommendations, just your representing. Okay. All right. So the first appearance is currently scheduled for July the 25th. Where she must be present for all court dates and failure to appear in this case to show for the absence of the warrant issue. Right to a preliminary hearing as well as. All right, counsel, you have the floor to speak on that.
Yes, Your Honor, we spoke with Solicitor Hubler, who has these cases, as well as the SLED. No one has an objection to unsecured bond or cognizance. She's a longtime resident. We found out about these charges last night, I think around 5 p.m. is when I finally called someone around 4 or 5 p.m. She self-reported to Colleton this morning. I think she was there about by 7:30 on the 3 charges in Colleton. She was given an unsecured bond, $10,000. There's going to be no testimony or evidence put forth that she is a flight risk or a danger to the community. So under 17-15-10, she's entitled to a PR bond. The only thing that I would add, for Your Honor, under the general conditions that were explained to us, she does have a job. I'm not going to put her on the news in a different state. I don't want to put the job out there. So we would request for work purposes to leave the state. That's about the only. Purely for work, and she'd be able to come back for all of the appearances.
So what did I say? Or was that?
Yes.
All right. Give general conditions, you must show up for your court date, failure to appear in this case to go for your absence of each warrant issue for arrest, otherwise permission for work purposes. I'm going to say he has no warrant of those previously stated.
Thank you, Your Honor. Your Honor, my approach is to speak to the judge. We used to work together. I just want to approach is to speak.
No way. I'm sorry. She had the chance to come clean. She had the chance. I think she should have to pay a bond. I think she should have to pay a bond. She sat up there in front of that. Jean Tall is the first female Chief Justice of, is it North Carolina or South Carolina? I get the mixed up. I don't know why, but I do. I think it's South Carolina, right? First female Chief Justice of the South Carolina Supreme Court. Like, this is a big deal judge. This is not just Judge Joe Schmo. She sat up there. It doesn't matter who it is. She was under oath, sat up there under oath and lied. And yeah, I think Murdaugh is guilty of sin. But he still, if you listen to the jurors, didn't get a fair trial. Because she basically told them he was guilty. Because she wanted to write her book, which I think she kind of already had partly written, and then she plagiarized part of it. So I think she needs to pay a bond. Oh, she's a member of the community, blah blah blah. So what? She knew exactly what she was doing, and she knew it was wrong, and she sat up there on the stand and she lied to the judge and the court, and this man didn't get a fair trial. Even though he is scum, he didn't get a fair trial. That's why our justice system doesn't work like it should. That's why our system is broken, is because of people like her. And she needs to be made an example of. I'm not saying she needs to go to prison for life or anything. I just think she should pay a bond. I'm glad that Laura Owens got perjury too. Last night, American Court showed a video of some woman in Simpson's court. Oh yeah, I know. The egg lady, that was crazy. The American Court showed a video of a lady in Simpson's court that I guess the guy had already been arrested for like sexual harassment or something against, I guess they were coworkers or had been coworkers in the past or something. I missed a little bit of the beginning. But anyway, he was on probation for whatever had happened originally. And she was trying to say that he violated his probation by doing things again, like contacting her or doing stuff, whatever. And she lied. And Simpson caught her in lies. It was really good. It was long, but it was good. And I was I can't remember what somebody said, but I said, speaking of people that accuse innocent men of doing stuff, Laura Owens got arrested finally. And Bill said, "Bye, Laura Owens." And I said, "Why, Bill? Did she accuse you of being, did she say she was pregnant with your baby too?" And Bill was like, yes. Yes, I would in a heartbeat." What are you talking about, Bill? And so then somebody in the chat was like, "Who's Laura Owens?" And he goes, "Google Laura Owens and put Clayton behind it." No, you're not right. Because he's like, yes, I would. Like, oh my God, what are you talking about? Yeah, but the way Peter explains perjury is that it's nuanced. Like, for instance, Carrie Roberts. She lied to the grand jury, but it's the way Peter explains it is like if you're maliciously lying on purpose to hurt somebody else or to get them in trouble, that's totally different than like what Carrie Roberts did. Because her thing was, I misunderstood the question. I didn't lie intentionally. I just misunderstood the question. So you can't, because everybody was like, well, is she going to get arrested for perjury? Is she going to get charged with perjury? And Peter was like, well, no. Most of the time, people don't get charged with perjury because it could be a misunderstanding, a miscommunication. They're not really lying on purpose to get somebody in trouble. They misremember. It's that kind of a thing. And like this morning, Hartnett wanted to correct her testimony from the day before. I'm glad they didn't let her do it because maybe Brennan talked to her sometime and said, you need to change this. I mean, that's possible. And we don't know. Like, we just don't know. And so I'm glad she didn't allow it because that could have been what happened. So I'm glad that he didn't allow it. But who knows? Maybe she just realized that she was incorrect in something she said and wanted to fix it. So that wouldn't be perjury. Yeah, I know, Laura Laura Owens. I know she blatantly lied. I know. That's what I mean. Like that's the way Pete explained it, because so many people are like, oh, that's perjury. She needs to go to jail, or she needs to be arrested, or whatever. And that's not what perjury is. What Laura Owens did was perjury. What Becky Hill did was perjury. So it has to be purposeful. You know you're lying, and you're lying for a reason. It's not just a misunderstanding or a miscommunication. It's purposefully lying for a reason. That's perjury. And you have to be able to prove that it was lies for a reason on purpose. So that's what perjury is. So those are two really good examples, Laura Owens and Becky Hill. So thank you, Judy. That's what I don't pay you the big bucks for. We filled a good chunk of time with that. Not enough, apparently. Come on, Bev. You guys, I found this stuff on Amazon. My hair has been thick my entire life. Like, when I go to get a haircut, if it's someone that has not cut my hair before, they're like, oh, wow, you've got such thick hair. And I've always bitched and moaned and complained about how thick it was. Now I want my thick hair back. Travis is like, well, you used to complain about it all the time. Why are you complaining now that it's too thick? Because I know it's from aging. That's why. I'm getting old hair. I want my young hair back. So I found this stuff on Amazon that it's like some kind of serum that you like. It comes with, it looks like a mascara wand that you brush like on your roots. And then there's also like a keratin mask that you put on your hair to make it stronger so it doesn't break. It's $10 for both of them together. So I think I'm going to get that and see if it helps. After chemo, it all fell out. What didn't all fall out? I went completely bald. I think I have one picture of me without hair. My best friend took it. It's on Facebook somewhere. It grew back in curly, but then it went straight again. I have naturally wavy hair. This is straightened. Any day now, Bev. Jeez. I don't know why, but everybody put I'll show you if StreamYard would cooperate. Everybody's going, wave, Vinny, wave. We can't see Vinny because it's on the fan. Is Vinny even in the courtroom? Okay, I guess he's in the room. It's not me, it's Bev. As soon as it said you are unmuted, StreamYard crashed. StreamYard hates Bev. You notice it didn't do it once during the Phil Spector trial? It didn't start doing this until Bev. It hates Bev. That's what I'm going with. See all the Vinny heads? It was worse before, you missed it, but it was like full of Vinny heads. Because apparently Vinny's in the courtroom.
Thank you for asking.
Why are you frozen now? Where's Vinny? I don't see him. But said he has a white shirt on. Okay, turn my camera off. Hopefully it won't crash on us again.
Please. Tori, I'm going to give you those. Those were both marked for ID. So one will be coming into evidence and one will be a chalk. So you may need to have them available for the witness. You can sit or stand wherever you're more comfortable, doctor, for now.
Session, please be seated.
All right, Mr. Brennan.
Doctor, when we left off, you had described all the injuries area of Mr. O'Keefe, and we had your observations of both the fractures in his skull and also your observation of Mr. O'Keefe's brain. You mentioned earlier that you use other resources, other testing.
Wow.
Did you ask for any type of assistance on toxicology analysis for Mr. O'Keefe?
Yes, it is routine, and it is protocol to submit toxicology specimens to the lab for examination.
May I approach, Your Honor?
Yes.
Thank you. Doctor, I'm handing you a document. Do you recognize that?
Yes, this is the report of toxicology from the State Police Crime Lab for Mr. O'Keefe's autopsy.
Have you seen that document before?
Yes,
Is that a fair and accurate depiction of the report you saw before?
yes.
All right, introduce this as the next exhibit, please.
No objection, Your Honor.
Thank you.
Exhibit 161.
Thank you. I have that in front of me. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
In your experience, doctor, are you familiar what the toxicology report and the testing involves?
I'm sorry, what was your question?
Are you familiar in your experience with what is involved in a toxicology test?
In general terms, yes.
And if you studied Mr. O'Keefe's toxicology report, was that important or part of your analysis in your ultimate conclusions?
It was one piece of evidence that I took into consideration, yes.
In the toxicology testing, is there a search to see if there are any type of drugs or medications in Mr. O'Keefe's blood?
Yes.
Okay, and was there any?
There were no prescriptions, there were no illicit.
They're also testing for blood alcohol content.
Yes.
What is the difference between ethanol in heart blood and ethanol under 1102?
In vitreous humor?
Yes.
So we usually submit multiple specimens for toxicology. Some of the specimens are used for screening of classes of different drugs, and then other specimens are used to confirm, the presence and quantify a particular drug. So in this particular case, the lab tested the heart blood, which showed that it had an ethanol level of 0.21 grams per deciliter. And they also tested the vitreous, which is the fluid that sits behind the eyeball. And in that specimen, the ethanol was slightly higher at 0.28.
Thank you, doctor. After your autopsy and observations of Mr. O'Keefe's body, inevitably, did you come to a conclusion about the manner and cause of Mr. O'Keefe's death? And I'll ask you first about the cause. To a reasonable degree of medical certainty, did you reach a conclusion about the cause of Mr. O'Keefe's death?
Yes, the cause of death was determined to be blunt impact injuries of head and hypothermia.
You mentioned two different things, blunt impact and hypothermia. Was
Correct.
there a primary cause of death in your opinion?
The blunt impact injuries of head.
Hypothermia, was that sufficient to be a primary cause of death in your opinion?
In the absence of head trauma, hypothermia is a cause of death, but I'm not able to make that determination in this case because we do have the blunt impact injuries of head.
So if I understand, you are not saying to a reasonable degree of medical certainty that hypothermia was the cause of death?
Not the primary. It contributed, but the primary cause of death was blunt impact injuries of head.
Did you learn what Mr. O'Keefe's body temperature was when he was brought to the hospital?
Yes, some of the medical records stated that his body temperature was 80.1, I believe, degrees Fahrenheit.
And what is a normal body temperature?
98.6.
Regarding the blunt force injuries as the cause of death to Mr. O'Keefe, at some point when you were conducting your autopsy, or even at the end when you drew your conclusions, were you able to reach a conclusion as to the manner of Mr. O'Keefe's death to a reasonable degree of medical certainty?
No, I was not.
After you complete your findings, including the manner of death and the cause of death, even if undetermined, are you required by statute, by law, to file a report or a document?
Yes,
And what is that document?
it's the death certificate.
Did you do so in this case?
Yes.
When you file a death certificate, do you include your ultimate conclusions regarding cause and manner of death?
Yes, there is a death certificate that is issued immediately after the autopsy. The death certificate is a document that is necessary for the family in order to make funeral arrangements and proceed with their plans. So a death certificate is always issued at the end of the autopsy. If the cause and manner of death are known at that point, they are stated on the death certificate. Then both the cause and the manner are listed as pending. And that death certificate is for family to make arrangements. As we get more results from our studies back, we issue an amended death certificate. So that amended death certificate will have a cause and a manner. The amended death certificate in this case stated that the cause was blunt impact injuries of head and hypothermia, and the manner was undetermined.
May I approach, Your Honor?
Yes.
Doctor, I'm handing you a document. Do you recognize that document?
Yes.
And what is it?
This is the final or amended death certificate for Mr. O'Keefe, stating that the cause of death is blunt impact injuries of head and hypothermia, and that the manner of death could not be determined.
Do you recognize that document as accurate?
Yes.
Your Honor, move this into evidence, please.
No objection, Your Honor.
All right, thank you.
Exhibit 162.
After issuing the death certificate and after the 90 days passed, have you done any further study or investigation on this case, doctor?
No.
Thank you. I have no further questions.
May I, Your Honor?
Yes.
We have not had the pleasure of meeting, so good morning, Dr. Scordi-Bello.
Good morning.
With regard to cause of death, is it correct that a forensic pathologist is tasked with determining that cause of death that includes contributing factors, injuries, and circumstances regarding the medical legal death investigation? Is that a fair statement?
Yes.
And I'm using the term medical legal. Is that a term that you're familiar with?
Yes.
And is it correct that medical legal means, particularly for medical examiners, that there's a medical aspect to the investigation that you perform, and there's also a legal aspect or a law enforcement aspect to it? Is that correct?
Correct.
And that's a little different than what physicians usually do, right? Because isn't it the ordinary course that it's mostly just medical, but medical examiners by statute and law need to have both of those prongs taken into consideration? Do I have that right?
Yes.
So in other words, the forensic pathologist, which you've indicated you are, is tasked with determining the cause of death, which answers the question as to why, in more layman's terms, why did the individual's body stop functioning at a particular time, correct?
Yes.
So more broadly, the cause of death is generally defined as the disease or the injury that resulted in the death of a person.
Correct.
So let's now, if we could, please move to the manner of death. And I'd like to summarize, I know you covered it on direct, but I want to put it in a slightly different context, and hopefully I'll get it right. So medical examiners as you've stated, are also tasked with, if they can, determining the manner of death or the circumstances under which the death occurred, correct?
Correct.
So manner can and does involve the circumstances under which the death occurred.
Yes.
And that causes one to go a little, the medical examiner to go beyond just medical analysis. You take into consideration other factors, which we'll get to. Is that correct?
Yes.
So you talked about, and I'm just going to go through them quickly, but if you could just check me on this, the 5 main categories of manner of death. So you talked about natural causes, correct?
Yes.
You talked about accident.
Correct.
You talked about suicide. You talked about homicide. And then the last category, undetermined. Do I have that correct?
Yes, you do.
So what I'd like to do is to focus on the undetermined category. And my understanding is, doctor, that that's where you landed, that's where you concluded with regard to manner of death of Mr. O'Keefe, correct?
Correct.
So undetermined is a term that is used and that you use. And does that mean that when the information pointing to one manner is not more compelling than other reasonable possibilities, or the death investigation lacks sufficient information to opine on a manner of death, at the time of death, the certificate is signed? Is that generally correct?
Yes.
So as we've talked about, I'm just trying to follow or just develop some logic and see if this is in agreement with you, that as a medical examiner, you're specifically tasked with conducting that medical legal investigation. And what we've just talked about is a bit of the method of analysis that you go through for that, correct?
I conduct the autopsy and I request information information from the investigative body that is out there investigating the other aspect of the case, not the body itself.
Yes. So is it correct that there's 4 general components to a forensic pathologist death investigation? Is scene investigation one of the components?
It depends on the jurisdiction where you practice. Scene investigation is part of forensic pathology in certain jurisdictions, and it is the responsibility of the district attorney and law enforcement in other jurisdictions. In the state of Massachusetts, we are responsible for the autopsy, and the DA's office and law enforcement are responsible for the scene investigation.
Excellent. So scene investigation in the state of Massachusetts is not within your domain in the office of the medical examiner. That is the domain of the district attorney and law enforcement, correct?
Correct.
How about another aspect, forensic autopsy and laboratory testing? That's within your domain, correct?
Correct.
And how about police reports and witness statements?
That is not under my jurisdiction. That is under the district attorney's office and the police.
Do you consider information, nonetheless, from police reports and witness statements in your analysis?
Yes.
And do you also consider, even though it's not within your jurisdiction in Massachusetts, do you also consider information about scene investigation?
Yes.
So it's correct then that you consider whether it's within your jurisdiction or not, you consider scene investigation and police reports and medical statements. It's right within your jurisdiction, and therefore, of course, you consider that. And then lastly, medical history and hospital records. Is it therefore, am I correct that that's something within your jurisdiction and that you consider in performing your forensic pathologist death investigation?
Yes.
So now let's move on to the application of those principles. So in order to conduct a proper medical legal investigation, the medical examiner has to have certain qualities, if you will, Is one of them being well-grounded in general medical knowledge?
Yes.
Is another appropriate training and experience in forensic pathology?
Yes.
In other words, you wouldn't want a specialist, for example, in cardiology without anything more to be conducting a death investigation. Is that correct?
I would not want them to be conducting an autopsy, correct?
Right. Would you want a neurologist to conduct a death investigation?
Personally, or are you asking me that? No, I don't think every physician has their specialty and their training. And forensic pathologists are trained to perform autopsies, and cardiac surgeons are trained to perform cardiac surgery.
Would you want a neurosurgeon to be conducting a death investigation?
We get
To
it.
be performing an autopsy? No.
So you wouldn't want a neurosurgeon to
We
perform
get
an
it,
autopsy
Alessi.
No,
because you don't believe they're qualified to do so, correct?
I don't believe they've had the appropriate training to perform an autopsy.
Going back into the many qualities of a medical examiner and attributes, they also have to have the ability to form opinions based upon all the available information using the scientific method along with sound reasoning. Is that a fair statement?
Yes.
And you're familiar with the term scientific method?
Yes.
And is it fair to say that the scientific method generally is sort of a systematic pursuit of knowledge that involves recognition and definition of a problem? Is that fair?
Yes.
Is it also involve the collection of data through observation and experimentation where appropriate?
Correct.
Does the scientific method also include the analysis of data?
Yes.
Does the scientific method also include the formulation, evaluation, and testing of hypotheses?
Yes.
And does it also, where possible, include the selection of a final hypothesis after considering other hypotheses?
Correct.
So what we've just discussed is a fair explication, a fair explanation of the scientific method. And the scientific method is part of the autopsy and forensic pathology analysis, correct?
Correct.
Now, applying one concept, that medical legal concept we talked about, just holding for a moment, if you could, the medical and going to the legal, if you will, law enforcement that you said in Massachusetts is not under your jurisdiction, but nonetheless, you consider information arising from it.
Yes.
Are you familiar with a person named Michael Proctor? Is that name familiar to you?
Yes, it is.
And at one time, Michael Proctor was a trooper, correct?
Correct.
And so did former Trooper Proctor inform you of the working law enforcement theory at the time of the investigation of this matter, namely his working theory, a collision of a motor vehicle with a pedestrian? Did he inform you of that?
He informed our office of that, yes.
He informed your office. And is it fair to say that he informed your office or provided that information to your office in or about February of 2022?
That information, part of that information was provided to our office at the time of the autopsy. One of the pieces of information that had come in, and there were multiple sources calling into our office, providing information, was that this was a possible person struck by a motor vehicle.
And the time of the autopsy, if I have it correctly, was that around the end of January of 2022?
The autopsy was January 31st.
Your Honor, if I could, with your permission, please publish a photograph which Your Honor has and the parties have stipulated, or that's in evidence. And this is the one. Yeah, approach, Your Honor.
Yes.
May I show that to the witness?
Okay. All right, so we will mark this as the next exhibit. There's no objections, Brennan?
No objection.
Okay, so we'll mark it first and then you can display it.
Thank you, Your Honor.
Exhibit 163.
Thank you. May I, Your Honor?
Yes.
Thank you. Dr. Squirty-Bello, if I could hand that to you, please. You could take a look at it, and when you've had a fair opportunity to look at it, you can just look back up, and I'll proceed at that time.
Yes, I recognize the picture. Well, I've never seen this picture before, but I know what it's depicting.
Thank you. What is depicted in that picture?
It's a picture of two individuals standing in a morgue setting, which looks very similar to our morgue at the Cape Cod office.
Very good. If you could just hold that for a moment, and with the court's permission, could I publish that for the jury?
Okay.
Thank you. Mr. Wolf? And if you could please zoom in on the two individuals in that picture. Dr. Squirty-Bello, do you recognize any of the individuals in that picture?
To be perfectly honest, no, I don't.
With regard to the person on the right, do you recognize that person?
No, I don't.
And you said you recognize the setting, correct?
Yes,
And you, if I heard you correctly, you said this is the Cape Cod facility?
it appears to be correct.
Right. So you testified earlier, if I recall correctly, that the autopsy was performed at the Cape Cod facility of the Office of the Chief Medical Examiner.
Yes, it was.
And you're normally in, as I recall, the Westfield, in an office that covers Western Massachusetts, it's Westfield.
Correct.
But you were at the Cape Cod facility, as I understand it, because there was a staff shortage and you had to travel down to Cape Cod. For this.
A lot.
Correct?
Correct.
So you weren't at your normal home base sort of facility. This is a facility that you went to for this autopsy, correct?
For this autopsy and multiple others, yes.
Yes. And you were covering a staff shortage, and that was the reason you went to Cape Cod, correct?
Correct.
And what's depicted in this picture are two individuals. For two individuals to be present, is there a protocol that they had to follow to be present for that, like a sign-in or an authorization?
Yes, there is a sign-in sheet that individuals have to put their name and their shield number and before they can come into the autopsy room.
So they have to put a shield number down, correct? You mentioned a shield number.
Yes,
And does that therefore mean that even though you don't know who they are, that they are with law enforcement? Are you able to determine that?
correct. I believe they were with law enforcement.
So those two individuals were with law enforcement, but you don't know who
I
they
don't-
are.
I don't know who they are specifically and what their actual position was.
But they were with law enforcement.
I believe, if my memory serves me right, there was a person from crime scene investigation and someone from state police.
Thank you.
But I'm working on a 2+ year memory.
Fair, that's fair, that's fair. I'm not going to ask you more questions to probe the memory. We can take that down. And yeah, we are finished with that. If you could hand that to thank you. Now, we were speaking about former Trooper Proctor. Do you recall former Trooper Proctor sending you a copy of scene photographs and wanting to schedule a phone call with you so that he could explain the status of his investigation? You recall that?
Yes,
And that occurred approximately in March of 2022?
yes, approximately.
Right. And the method of communication of that was that by email, to the best of your recollection?
I requested that our medical legal investigator, we have our own investigators at the office that are responsible for obtaining medical records and sometimes being the liaison between us and law enforcement to get reports. I requested that she contact whoever was in charge of the investigation and set up a meeting, a phone call. So since it had already been a few weeks since the autopsy, I wanted to make sure that if there was any additional information that could be provided to me, I could take it into account because I had 90 days to issue a report and a death certificate on this case.
Now, you've mentioned the 90 days on direct, you just mentioned it now. Is the 90 days a hard and fast rule, or is it just something you aspire to as a matter of good practices?
It's not a hard and fast rule. It's something that as an office, we try to achieve. Again, the reason being that there are family members, next of kin that are waiting for these reports and these death certificates for various reasons. So is it possible to go over the 90 days? Absolutely, if necessary. But we do try to finish our part in those 90 days.
So it's possible to go past the 90 days, but there would, given the considerations you just articulated, there'd have to be a pretty good reason why you'd want to do that, right?
Correct.
And in this situation, you concluded that you had sufficient information on the medical side and the legal side to come to the conclusions that you needed to come to. Is that fair?
Well, I had sufficient information on the medical side because I did the autopsy and I had those findings. I did not have sufficient information that pointed to one manner of death over another manner of death. And therefore, I stated that the manner of death was undetermined.
Exactly. So the manner of death is undetermined. And I want to, if I could, with you pursue that a little bit in a moment. But when you came to toward the end of that 90-day period, you had had information from the law enforcement side on their theory of what had happened, correct?
Correct.
I'll let that one stand.
You had performed all of the medical investigation that you needed to perform. Is that right?
Yes.
Something that more that you wanted to do on the medical side, you mentioned, to be fair, you had Dr. Stone, you had it on that side, correct?
Yes.
You therefore concluded on the manner of death that there was a not more compelling or more likely than other reasonable possibilities. Is that fair?
Yes.
So in furtherance of that, on April 14th of 2000, you issued a certificate.
April 14th, correct. And I would assume that the death certificate was on or around that.
Presented to the Cape Cod location, correct?
Yes.
And you also discussed that you brought Dr. Stonebridge
there were injuries. I saved the brain in a special solution, and then the brain was transported to our facility in Boston. That's where Dr. Stonebridge examined
in the matter?
I did.
And Dr. Stonebridge is certified, correct?
Correct.
She achieved board certification in forensic pathology like you?
Do you know that?
I do.
I'll allow that.
Yes, she's board certified in forensic pathology.
And she is board certified in general pathology, correct?
Yes.
And she's board certified in neuropathology, correct?
Correct.
Can you briefly describe to the jury what neuropathology is?
Neuropathology is a subset or specific additional training in forensic pathology where the person spends a considerable amount of time, usually 1 to 2 years, examining brains and learning all about the diseases of the brain as well as trauma to the brain.
Now, you indicated earlier, correct?
Yes.
And you a brain injury. Is it a fair characterization that Dr. Stonebridge is sort of the brains of the brain area of autopsy? Is that fair?
I'm going to sustain the objection. Let's move on.
So with regard to Dr. Stonebridge, would you agree that she's really uniquely qualified in some ways? Or how would you describe her qualifications, Dr. Stonebridge?
Sustained.
With regard to Dr. Stonebridge, what did she do?
I'm going to see you at sidebar on this, please.
May I, Your Honor?
Yes.
Thank you. Dr. Scorti-Bello, have you, are you aware of an attorney name, or excuse me, a doctor named Zeke Wolf?
No, I'm not.
Now I'd like to based on information that was presented to you as part of your examination and analysis, is it correct that you presume that because Mr. O'Keefe's body was found in the snow and his body temperature was 80 degrees, that he died from hypothermia as one of the causes?
I reached that conclusion after performing the autopsy and after seeing some findings that were consistent with hypothermia, and then combined with the information that was provided to me about Mr. O'Keefe's body being found in the snow, I came to the conclusion that was one of the things that contributed.
Did you consider whether there may have been other reasons as to why his body reached that temperature of 80 degrees? Sort of applying the scientific method and seeing if there were other reasons?
Other than being out in the snow? No, I do not.
Do you know whether there are other alternative reasons how his body could reach the temperature of 80 degrees?
People can become hypothermic for other reasons, such as sepsis. But in this particular case, I didn't have any reason to believe that that was part of the circumstances.
You're familiar with the medical phrase differential diagnosis, correct?
Yes.
Differential diagnosis is a term that's used by doctors to pursue other potential causes of a medical injury. Is that a fair general statement?
Yes.
So, for example, if somebody is having difficulty breathing, a doctor may say, I think it's the heart is their primary hypothesis, but they may want to differentially diagnose this and look at the lungs. Is that an example of a differential diagnosis that let's look at the lungs to see if that may be the problem? Is that a good, fair example?
In the example you're giving, yes.
So applying that concept, and do you believe the concept of, well, applying that concept to this situation, did you perform a differential diagnosis as to the cause of the death and question whether there was hypothermia as any cause of the death of the decedent? Did you make that analysis?
I looked at the anatomic findings that I had at the time of autopsy, the information that was provided to me based on the circumstances and where the body was found. And I came to the conclusion that there were hypothermic changes in Mr. O'Keefe's body.
So you just used the phrase hypothermic changes. Did I hear that correctly?
Yes.
Can there be hypothermic changes without a cause of death being hypothermia?
Yes, of course.
So you can have signs in the body of hypothermia, but you can also conclude that a cause of death is not from hypothermia, correct?
If the person is deceased and I am examining the body and there are multiple things that I believe contribute to the death, then I tend to include all of them, meaning that if this was a drug intoxication and the body also showed signs of hypothermia, I would include both of them on the death certificate because there is no scientific way of teasing out whether it was just one or the other or both. In this particular case, I had two processes that were going on. One was the head trauma, and the other one were these hypothermic changes. I put all that together, and again, included or took into account the investigative information of where the body was found, what the temperature was when the body was found, whether the person was still alive or not. And I came to the conclusion that the cause of death was blunt impact injuries of head. And I included the hypothermia because I saw during the autopsy that there were changes consistent with hypothermia.
So I want to break that down a little bit if I could with you. So you testified on direct, and I think you alluded to it here, that the primary cause of death, use that phraseology on direct, was blunt force injury. Is that correct?
Blunt impact injuries to the head, yes.
Blunt impact injury to the head, and that's the primary cause, right?
Correct.
And then there's, and I'm not clear on what you refer to on direct as a secondary cause of being death of hypothermia, but you've used a little different phrase in some of your answers, and I want to make sure I got it right. Hypothermic considerations. Can you repeat what it was?
I said hypothermic changes.
Hypothermic changes, and we agree that you can have hypothermic changes without a conclusion of hypothermia, correct?
No, hypothermic changes are what I'm referring to are actual things that I can see in the organs that are consistent with hypothermic findings. They're things I can see with my eyes.
So you can
Changes suggest and are consistent with someone being hypothermic.
as you sit here now, with regard to, you use the phraseology consistent with hypothermia, signs of hypothermia, that's what I want to pursue just a little bit with regard to further information. We got started on this by asking whether you used the concept of differential diagnosis determine the cause and manner of death. And you said in one of your answers that you relied upon law enforcement information, correct? Is that
Yes.
part of it? It was you brought that up. You're the one who said you relied upon that, correct?
Yes.
And you've brought that up on your direct testimony and earlier in the cross. Is that correct, that you relied upon the investigation of law enforcement? So,
Sustained.
so now what I'd like to do is to ask you whether, using the concepts of differential diagnosis scientific method, did you consider whether Mr. O'Keefe could have died somewhere other than where the body was found and been moved and placed in the snow? Did you consider that?
Sustained.
May we approach, Your Honor?
Move along with this. We can approach in a bit.
Thank you. What, if any, alternative diagnoses did you apply to Mr. O'Keefe?
I don't understand your question.
What alternative scenarios did you look at, if any, for the cause or manner of death of Mr. O'Keefe?
I'll allow that question. What, if any?
At the time of the autopsy, I documented injuries and signs of hypothermia. I was provided with a set of circumstances. And at the end of the investigation, or at the end of, my timeline, I concluded on the cause, but I did not conclude, or I did not determine a manner. The manner would be the circumstances you are speaking about, whether I considered other causes or circumstances. That's not how it works. I don't come up with hypothetical scenarios on how those injuries occur. I try to state the injuries, describe the injuries, state the cause of death and why that person died. And then I use all kinds of other investigative information that is provided to me to determine if I have enough to make a determination on the manner.
Did anyone provide to you any alternatives as to the finding of the body of Mr. O'Keefe in the snow?
Personally, to me, no.
Did you ask for any alternatives to the nature and location of the injury or death of Mr. O'Keefe?
I asked for all the information that was available.
Understood, but my question is, did you ask for any alternatives to the information that was provided to you as regards the location of the injuries? Did anyone provide you any alternatives to where the injuries could have occurred?
No.
So
I'm going to let the answer stand. So the answer is no, so there's no evidence of that. So next question.
So you talked about the information you had at the time. What time is that?
The information at the time was a preliminary police report and verbal communications regarding the circumstances of how Mr. O'Keefe's body was found.
And when I asked about the time, I'm on calendar time. Was this January, February, March, April of 2022?
The preliminary police report was on the day of the autopsy, and then information, I don't remember exactly how long, but in the weeks following, information was coming in.
Do you have the ability to amend a death certificate?
Yes, I do.
And you can amend a certificate if you obtain further information with regard to the circumstances surrounding the death. Is that correct?
That's correct.
In your previous answers, you were talking about the information you had at the time. And I'm concluding that the latest act would be is April of 2022. Is that correct?
Correct.
Have you obtained or been provided with further information? In other words, information after April of 2022 regarding the cause or manner of death?
What do you mean, have I been provided? Has someone physically provided me with a report on different circumstances?
Well, what I'm just talking about is any other information that you have received or considered in terms of the analysis with regard to the cause or manner of death.
Received in what way?
Here's what I'll do. I'll be a little more specific. What I want to do is to get at the the head injury of the decedent, okay? Is it fair to say that the head injury, you called it a traumatic, state what you phrased that as, because I want to use your phraseology.
Blunt impact injuries of the head.
So blunt impact injuries of the head. Is it fair to say that that was a very severe injury?
It was a severe injury, correct?
And would Mr. O'Keefe had been rendered unconscious nearly instantaneously with death following shortly thereafter?
It's very possible, yes.
Is it more than possible? Is it probable that that's what would have occurred?
I can't tell you how quickly he would have been rendered unconscious, but at some point after that injury, yes, he would have been rendered unconscious.
Is it possible he could have been rendered unconscious immediately?
So she's answered it this way. I think you need another person for that. Let's move on from that, Mr. Lessie.
You made your own determination of the cause of death, correct?
Yes, that's my job.
Understood. And what I want to do is to pursue the basis of your determination. So you used the phrase brain impact injury.
Blunt impact.
A blunt impact injury. Have I got that correct?
Blunt impact injuries of head, yes.
Of head, right. And that's your conclusion, correct?
Yes.
Based upon your conclusion, did you make any determination as to whether the decedent would be able to carry out any purposeful movement after that injury?
I don't know.
Did you make any determination as to whether they would be able to engage in any cognitive functions, meaning processing things and making decisions?
I did not make that determination, no.
Did you observe any pattern to the injuries to the head of the decedent?
A pattern? I observed that there were injuries to the back of the head as well as other internal injuries to the base of the skull, as well as the brain.
Your Honor, if we could please publish, I'm just going to check to make sure they're in. If we could, Your Honor, publish 160 that is in evidence. But before we do, Mr. Wolf, I would like to approach Your Honor and let you know in case there's anything further that needs to be done. Thank you.
Is there, did you show it to Mr. Brown?
It's already been agreed to as in evidence. and it
Okay.
is in evidence.
Oh, it's in evidence?
Yeah, I just wanted to make sure if there was any statements that Your Honor wanted to make.
So why don't you come over here, because, why don't you come over a second?
and see. He hasn't seen it. He doesn't even open them, like they pop up. So he just like reads them when they pop up. He doesn't read the whole thing. So like I'll send him a list of things to get, and he'll come home and he won't have the whole list, and I'll be like, "Where's whatever he didn't bring?" I'll be like, "I didn't see that." I said, "You didn't click on it, did you?" He's like, "Nope." You have to click on it to see the whole message. Like, Travis, 18 years I've been trying to teach you how to text. 18 years. I don't eat a lot of bread either. In fact, we used to end up throwing it away because it would get all moldy and gross. But I get the either the whole wheat or like the low calorie, no low sugar kind. So if I do eat it, I'm not screwing up my diet. And that we feed the crust to the dogs. So we don't even eat a whole piece. I haven't had French toast in, I can't remember the last time I had French toast. My stepdaughters are such picky eaters. The first time I made French toast for them, they wouldn't touch it. They were like, "What did you do?" And I was like, "What? I made you French toast. That's what you asked for." And they're like, "What's all the brown stuff?" I'm like, "It's cinnamon and brown sugar." "What do you mean, what's all the brown stuff?" And they're like, "Our mom doesn't make it that way." I'm like, "Well, how does she make it?" "She just dips it in egg and fries it." I was like, "Gross." "No, you gotta have the cinnamon and brown sugar. That's what makes it good." And they were like, "Yuck," and they wouldn't eat it. I was like, "You can't? You can freeze bread? I didn't know that." Oh, I didn't know you could get circle shaped bread. Huh. Can you? How hard is it? Easy. Take it out.
May I, Your Honor?
Yes.
Thank you. With Your Honor's permission, I would like to publish Exhibit 160.
Yes.
Thank you.
Thing I can't give up. Don't take my taters away. I love.
To what is depicted on both screens, pick whatever screen is most convenient for you. And what I want to do is to go over what is depicted there. And I'd like to start with just some basics. What is that white rectangle that is on the photograph?
This,
Yes.
that's a ruler.
And what's the purpose of the ruler?
To show a scale. When I measure the injury, I use the ruler to document that.
And if you could please draw your further attention to what I will refer to, and you use your own term, but just to start it, the horizontal line that is appears to be a laceration You know what I'm referring to?
This, yes, this is a laceration.
Right. So it's fair to say that that's a laceration.
Correct.
And just so we get all that's depicted on this, you referred to earlier up above that, the red area. Also denote to the left, almost like a J type item. See that?
Yeah, that I did not note that specifically. I just noted the whole injury as part of the abrasion.
That's my point. So you didn't make a separate note of what appears to be a J, and it might be easier to see it in the screen over there. It's your conclusion, but is it easier to see there?
Yeah, I can see it.
Yeah, and so you didn't make a separate note as to what that was in your report, correct?
No, I did not.
Do you consider that an abrasion or something else?
I believe that's still an abrasion.
Do you conclude that that J is different in any manner from the abrasion that you've noted above the laceration?
I believe it could be part of the whole abrasion, or it could be something different.
Fair enough. Would a fall backwards on a flat frozen ground produce a circular and not a linear abrasion as depicted here on the back of an injured person's head?
Can you repeat the question?
Sure. Assume a fall backwards on a flat frozen ground. Would such a fall and impact present that type of pattern, or would it present a circular pattern, perhaps with something like a starfish in the middle?
I'll allow that. Can you answer that?
I can say that a fall backwards could very well produce that injury.
My question is more specific, and that is a fall backwards where the person impacts the back of their head on flat frozen ground. Would you expect that type of a laceration from that type of a fall? Not just a general fall backwards, but specifically a fall backwards where the back of the head hits flat frozen ground. Would you expect that?
I could, yes.
And under what circumstances could a laceration like that and an abrasion, all of it together, what circumstances could cause that type from a fall backwards on flat frozen ground?
Well, the laceration is due to the blunt impact, and so is the abrasion. The abrasion is friction. So depending on the type of surface, you mentioned flat frozen ground, it's quite possible to have an injury as the one depicted. There's nothing inconsistent with this injury and a fall on someone's on the back of the head with a blunt surface.
Is there, are you familiar with the phrase pattern recognition, something that requires training with regard to being able to recognize certain patterns and determining whether there is a pattern, takes certain specialty training, etc.
Correct.
And isn't pattern recognition a principle that you apply in the medical examiner's office?
Yeah, we do.
And so example of pattern recognition could be a knife wound.
Correct.
There's certain patterns that you see on a decedent that can be consistent with those types of causes of injury, correct?
Correct.
Assuming a fall backwards onto frozen ground and there being on a lawn with grass, would you expect to see any grass at all in the injury site?
It's possible to have grass.
Is it possible to have well, are you familiar with the height and weight of the decedent generally? And if you need to look at your notes, please do so.
Yes. Mr. O'Keefe was approximately 6'1" and 216 pounds.
So assuming a fall backwards and an impact to head on a ground with grass, a person who's 6'1", there is going to be significant acceleration forces that occur as they're going backwards. Is that correct?
That's fair to say, yes.
And therefore, the more acceleration forces, usually there's a correlation with the force of the impact.
Correct.
And in terms of force of impact and assuming grass on the ground, would you believe it's more probable than not that one would then see some grass on the head?
Sustained is that form.
Given what you testified regarding the height of Mr. O'Keefe, and assuming what I just gave to you as a fall backwards and acceleration and forces, would you expect to see anything else on the back of his head?
You have to be more specific than that.
Right. I thank you. So would you expect to see, is it possible if that was the manner of the fall that there should be grass on the head? Is that possible?
Sustained.
Did you consider at all in your evaluation let me back up. Do you see any evidence of grass in this depiction?
No, I do not.
Did you recall ever seeing any evidence of grass when you were performing the autopsy?
I did not see evidence of grass.
Did you consider at all in performing your autopsy whether or not grass should be present given what was reported to you by law enforcement?
Sustained.
Why?
Did you make any considerations at all regarding grass in regard to your autopsy report?
I did not see any grass. No, I did not make any determinations.
And was grass at all even a consideration in your analysis?
I had very limited information as to the exact nature of the surface at the time of autopsy.
So the answer is no to that
No.
question. Thank you. Did you have any information regarding the circumstances that you said you look at in trying to determine manner of death as to whether there were any stones or rocks around the scene?
That I did not have any information.
So meaning you didn't have any information, you saw no information that there were any stones or rocks by the scene, is that correct?
Sustained in that form.
What, if any, consideration did you make in your assessment of cause and manner of death with regard to stones or rocks?
I did not make any.
With regard to any other potential causes other than ground, did you consider any other possibilities that could cause the type of injuries that are depicted on the screen?
There's a number of possibilities that could cause the injury.
My question is, did you consider, not whether there are, but whether you considered them at the time you were performing the autopsy?
I'm always considering at the time of autopsy what could have caused a certain injury.
Did you put in your notes or your autopsy report any of those considerations? Are they documented?
No.
Now, in terms of differential diagnosis that we talked about, did you determine whether there were any other possible explanations for the injuries to the decedent other than what law enforcement presented to you?
I'll allow that.
Internally, I consider all kinds of other explanations. I have to look at the findings and the possible ways that those injuries could have been sustained and decide whether I have enough information and whether I am satisfied with the information that I have in order to conclude or determine a manner.
Did you make any notes at all about the considerations you were just speaking about, other consideration, any notes whatsoever in any document in your autopsy report?
Not in my autopsy report, no.
Did you make any other notes of those considerations in any document that you created for this case at all?
No, these are considerations that I've had and discussions I've had with colleagues in terms of evaluating these injuries. And
I don't want you to go into what other people said, but I want you to finish your answer.
Right, no, I did not make physical notes of my considerations.
Your Honor, I'm going into a different category, so I just wanted to alert Your Honor to it.
All right. And it will take more than 10, 15 minutes?
Oh, yes.
Okay. All right, jurors. Well, the lunch is in. We'll take the lunch and recess. So we'll see in about 45 minutes.
Rise to the jury.
Goodbye.
When are we coming back, Bev?
Defense has nothing, Your Honor. Thank you for asking. Thank you.
$135? Okay, 135, guys. I will see you all then. Have a nice lunch. So 12:35 Central. 12:35 Central, Jill. So yeah. Bye. See you guys after lunch.